Josh, what are you doing here? Basketball schedules are out.
Oh, thank God. OwlSports Update is live and it starts right now.
Hello and welcome back to OwlSports Update. He's Josh Safran and I'm Sage Hurley. Coming up, yes, we're talking about basketball and one huge preseason award on the women's side.
Yes, and if there was any doubt, the Pop Warner era at Temple is over. Last Friday, the Owls looked to upset 5th-ranked Cincinnati, and it would have been their biggest win since 1938 against 3rd-ranked Florida when Pop Warner was still at the helm. Friday night lights against a 5th-ranked Cincinnati team that hasn't lost a home game since 2017, and early on, Owls not doing themselves any favors. A muffed punt by Jaden Blue, and that started the blitzkrieg from the Bearcats off the muffed punt. Ritter to Alec Pierce, too easy as he climbs Cam Ruiz for the touchdown. Now, it wasn't all bad for Temple. Move aside, Brandon McManus. Rory Bell, who before this season had a career-high kick of 30 yards, gets a little out from the crossbar for a 55-yard field goal, the second longest in Temple history. Unfortunately, that's the only Temple highlight of the game. The rest was all Cincy. On the very first play of the second half, Jerome Ford goes 75 yards to the house for his second touchdown of the game. Ford picked up 149 yards on the ground in this one, and DeJuan Mathis just attacked from all angles. The Bearcats racked up 6 sacks in this game en route to a 52-3 statement victory.
OwlSports Update's Brielle Berry covered the Owls' post-game reaction to this blowout loss, and she is live at Edberg Olsen to tell us where it went off the rails.
Thank you, Sage. After coming off a big upset win over Memphis just days prior, the Owls looked promising coming into their matchup against Cincinnati. But after their first drive, things took a turn for the worse.
From missed tackles, muffed punts, and 6 sacks, Temple did not look like the team that beat Memphis just 6 days earlier. The Owls did move the ball well in their first drive, but things fell apart quickly when they came up with no points.
There wasn't a lot good out there tonight, and the protection certainly wasn't good.
Once it got bad, it got real bad real quick. The Owls fumbled 2 punts, the offensive line didn't protect DeJuan Mathis, and the secondary missed too many tackles, leading to too many big plays.
So when you play well against a good team, that happens.
Coming into the game, Cincinnati was unbeaten at home dating back to 2017, and with the win over Temple, that home win streak now stands at 22.
At the end of the day, we didn't play as good as we could have played. A lot of things were wrong, so we just got to bounce back and stay together. I know we're definitely going to get back to working and be hungry. Just can't let 1 L turn into 2. Guys hung in there, and then the second half, just we didn't play good. And, we got to coach better, and we got to play better.
The Owls have to address the fundamentals in all facets of the game during the bye week before their trip to Tampa, where they'll face South Florida on October 23rd.
Temple has reached the halfway mark of the season, and the Owls are sitting at 3-3 overall and 1-1 in conference play. The Owls have seen 2 different players behind center in DeJuan Mathis and Justin Lynch. Lynch took over when Mathis suffered an ankle injury back in Week 1 against Rutgers. The Owls are no strangers to injury this season, with key players going down such as Randall Jones, Yvandi Rigby, and Michael Neese. Perhaps the team's most impressive game was when they hosted Memphis, where Mathis threw 35 completions for 322 yards and 3 touchdowns, in addition to having 53 rushing yards. The week before that, they beat down on Wagner 41-7, their first win at home this season. The only other win this year was against Akron, which is likely the weakest team they will see this season. It's really defeat or famine. Temple has lost by an average of 40 points in its 3 losses to Rutgers, Boston College, and Cincy. Temple faces South Florida in its Week 7 matchup, giving them an extra week of practice. Live from Edberg Olson Hall, I'm Brielle Berry. Sage, back to you on the desk.
As Temple approaches its season halfway point, let's look at the remaining schedule. The Owls have a week off before they take on those pesky Florida acronyms. On the 23rd, the Owls will fly south to USF. Fans, get your Halloween costumes ready for a spooky tailgate, because the following weekend, they will be back at the Link, facing UCF on Mischief Night. To round out the season, they'll have a pair of games at the Link and a pair away.
Football is the centerpiece for most collegiate athletic departments. Temple's no different. That's why last week's hire of new athletic director Arthur Johnson has us wondering what direction he will take football, along with the other 18 varsity teams. OwlSports Update's Nick Neisted explains.
Temple has found its man to lead the school in a very volatile time for its athletic program.
Oh, and he lost the handle!
The school announced Arthur Johnson from the University of Texas as the new athletic director.
I wanted to lead an athletic program, and over time, I wanted it to fit a certain profile, because we were really happy in Austin, Texas.
And Johnson has his work cut out for him. He comes from an athletic powerhouse at Texas
The game!
to Temple, where the Owls are trying to survive with a football stadium 6 miles from campus, not to mention playing in a conference struggling to survive.
His throw is picked off!
No athletic director just comes in and just, snaps their fingers and does that. Arthur Johnson doesn't come in 2 weeks and go back to Jason Wingard and say, hey, Jason, guess what? I got us into the ACC. It just doesn't work that way. There's so much on his plate, and there's a lot to do.
Athletics is usually what makes a college or university a household name. President Wingard's vision to do this is through bringing athletic success in football and basketball back to Broad Street. His pick of Johnson aligns with his vision to do just that.
If it works out that way, that takes Temple in that direction, then of course that can be very exciting.
Help our student athletes understand the value of their brand, and then how to leverage that to take advantage of this new window of opportunity in college athletics.
It's the beginning of this duo, a new president hiring a new athletic director, both with a vision for Temple as they strive to create a prospering athletic program. From the Leocor Center, I'm Nick Neisted, OwlSports Update.
We're up against our first break, but you'll want to stick around. Owls basketball is right around the corner, and the full schedule has been released.
Talk about exciting. The season starts in less than a month. We'll tell you about what to expect from our Owls on the hardwood after this break. We're back, and you know what else will be back soon? Basketball.
That's right, and hey, the American Athletic Conference preseason picks are out, and the men are towards the bottom half, picked to finish 8th in the 11-team conference.
Houston is picked to win it. The Cougars picked up 8 of 11 first-place votes. The men will start their season off with 2 games at the Leocor Center, one against Maryland Eastern Shore. Then USC, the California one, will come to town with a new head coach. The Owls defeated the Trojans in 2019, but last season the team went dancing, falling to top-seeded Gonzaga in the Elite 8 of the NCAA tournament.
Now, I'm tempted to spotlight Houston here, but that matchup makes me feel fear more than excitement. So I'm going with Cincinnati. We just saw its football team put a hurting on the Owls, but I want to see what happens on the hardwood. These two teams always play incredibly close games, yet somehow the Bearcats always seem to end up on top. Cincy's on a 9-game winning streak against the Owls, but I think the buck stops there. This matchup will be right in the middle of Temple's conference play. It should be a great measuring stick for how this team is doing this year.
Now, in practice, we get to play together and healthy and no stoppage. So, our games have really got to the next level.
We want to play at a good pace, being able to get up and down the floor. We want to get out in some of those passing lanes on the defensive side. And I don't think the type of team that we had last year, we couldn't do those things.
Now let's shift to the women, where who else but Mia Davis will run the show in her 6th year as a graduate forward. Davis was picked as the AAC Preseason Player of the Year, and she'll see every Philadelphia Big Five rival this season. That's Villanova, Penn, St. Joe's, and LaSalle. I want to see if she can establish herself as the best women's basketball player in the city.
That's right, Mia Davis is easily the most dominant player we've seen in any sport at this university during my time on campus. So I want to see the two biggest and baddest players face off against each other. I'm calling out AAC preseason #1, USF Bulls. USF has the only player in the conference who can go toe-to-toe with Davis in the form of Bethy Manunga. Can't wait to see those two duke it out at Pearson on February 9th.
I feel as though we have a lot of shooters on the team. We have a grad student, Jalen Holmes. She can knock down a shot. A transfer, Karanda, and also Imani can knock down a shot too.
Offense is going to be back like the years that we went to the NCAA tournament where you're not going to be able to key in on one guy.
Mia Davis and company will be getting some big-time reinforcements this year. A transfer from Norfolk State and Jalen Holmes. Then there's Giselle Thomas, a graduate guard hailing from Florida International, who averaged 17.5 points per game last season. Finally, there's freshman Tiara East, who was ranked the 27th best high school guard in the country last season.
While there are additions with experience on the women's end, I want to talk about freshmen. On the men's side, guard Isaiah Miller from Newman Grady High School and 6'7" forward Zach Hicks from Camden Catholic are freshmen to keep an eye on. They're new, they're local, and they're picking things up quicker than expected, according to Caleb Battle at Wednesday's Media Day. So we've gone over this year's schedule. Now we have a question for you. What is your can't-miss game of the season?
Don't get me wrong, I love myself some American athletic basketball, but there's a right answer to this poll. Anytime the Owls travel to Radnor and get an opportunity to knock off the big cats from Nova, it's must-see TV.
We've talked about some new names and faces, but on the men's side, the biggest name is one that won't be wearing a Temple uniform this season. This new player has a lot in common with head coach Aaron McKee. Temple men's basketball is less than 1 month out from their first game on November 10th, and the Owls have a new kid on the roster. 15-year-old Philadelphian Omar Singate is officially a Temple Owl by way of Team Impact, a healthcare organization that has paired over 2,000 children with serious illnesses to college teams.
I'm happy to be here. Happy we chose.
Omar lives with sickle cell anemia, a red blood cell disease that impacts about 100,000 Americans. It's a disease that Coach Aaron McKee knows too well.
I had a brother who struggled with sickle cell anemia, a sister who struggled with sickle cell anemia. I have the sickle cell trait, so it runs through my family.
Omar signed on the dotted line in September, with both his loved ones and his new Temple family in attendance.
When he left out of the room, I explained to the kids, I said, hey, you get an opportunity to see Omar on one of his good days, but there are a lot of bad days that he has.
And on those good days, when his schedule allows, Omar will be supporting his Owls from the stands at the Liacouras Center, just as they'll support him.
I want my boy to be right behind the bench in the #1 jersey too, so hopefully we can get that done.
Omar is a part of the sickle cell branch here at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And in just 1 week after he put pen to paper, 5 more children from that same branch decided to get involved with Team Impact.
The more attention you can bring to a cause, the more help that you can get. The one thing that I would say to not just college programs, professional programs, and everyday life, people, just get involved.
Keep an eye out for Omar and his family cheering on the Owls all season long. I've said it once and I'll say it again, I have a soft spot for goalies. Stay tuned to hear more about our Owls in the net.
Plus, field hockey plays a nail-biter. We've got our Spotlight Players of the Week, and
I'm Jacob Smedley, and I have the very latest on the men's soccer team through their first 10 games after this short break.
After a 2-0 win against the Princeton Tigers, the men's soccer team continued its quest for its first conference win on Saturday against the USF team on a 4-game losing streak. Early on, a huge opportunity for Chaim Rosary that just goes wide right, and things only get worse for the Owls. Here it is Shagun Afolabi. He taps in the first goal in the 12th minute, making it 1-0. And in the 31st minute, Temple's Taekwon Stroud gets sent off for a reckless tackle. And just before the half ends, USF's JT Copper sends a major laser into the upper left corner. And USF showing no mercy. One more for good measure as Henry Galina one-hops a free kick past goalkeeper Liam Cummings for the last goal of the match. USF dominates Temple 3-0.
After a less than ideal start to conference play, the Owls must make a change and produce in their 6 remaining games if they want a chance to make the conference tournament. We welcome OwlSports Update's Jacob Smedley for the very latest on the season so far.
Thanks, Sage. The Owls season has been a roller coaster so far. The Owls started the season 1-0-2 behind great net minding. Then the Owls slipped as conference play began, going 1-6 in their next 7 contests. A key for the Owls to salvage the remainder of the season starts with their experienced forwards and midfielders up front. Mike Eigendorf, Amir Cohen, and Jalen Campbell, among others, have to create chances offensively to take the pressure off of the defense. The Owls are no stranger to adversity, but with 2 matchups against the 6th-ranked team in the nation, Tulsa Golden Hurricanes, it is going to be a tough mountain for the Owls to climb. Reporting from the Temple Sports Complex, I'm Jacob Smedley. Josh and Sage, back to you.
Thanks, Jacob. Now to field hockey. After a conference win last Friday versus Providence, the Owls traveled up 476 to take on Lehigh 2 days later. Temple traveled to Bethlehem, and the Mountain Hawks in white put the first points on the board off a penalty corner. That's a shot from Erica Steele, escaping the Owls graduate goalie Megan Ragusa. Another corner, another score for Lehigh. The Mountain Hawks, Lotta found Lenka, both from the Netherlands, for their second score. Temple's McKenna Burkhart finally put in a goal of her own, but it wasn't enough in a 2-1 final. That's Lehigh running onto the field to celebrate its first winning season since 1994.
Whether it's field hockey or soccer or lacrosse, you can often tell how a team is just by looking at the goalie. It's one of the most important positions in sports, and it can make or break a team. This past week, I asked around Temple's athletics to find out what makes a good goalie.
There's the old saying, offense sells tickets, but defense wins games. If so, winning games starts here. Shanna Hecht in lacrosse, Cameron Stablin in women's soccer, Liam Cummings now in men's soccer, and Megan Ragusa in field hockey. All 4 have given up a combined 39 goals, but they've saved 153 others.
There is no team in the country that wins without a great goalie.
Good teams don't, become great teams, and great teams don't win championships without strength everywhere, but certainly in goal.
Scoring the big goal and celebrating with style gets all the glamour, but it takes a different type of person to get in front of the net.
When I was younger and stuff, everyone used to be like, what are you doing playing that? Like, who willingly jumps behind balls coming flying at you and stuff? But, like, I love it because I love the adrenaline of it.
Goalkeepers can't go from good to great overnight. The best goalkeepers have a certain it factor that can't be defined by just athleticism.
You kind of just black out and, like, you're in this matrix mode that, like, everything just shuts off and, like, you have the only thing you're seeing right now is, like, this ball.
Coaches have no choice but to put all sorts of trust into their goalies. Underclassmen, upperclassmen, grad students. Whether it's 6 feet in lacrosse, 12 feet in field hockey, or 24 feet in soccer, doesn't matter the age or experience, all goalies need to have the same resume.
Competitive,
Reliable,
great communicator,
trustworthy,
joyful.
Goalkeepers are simply built different, and here's another stat to prove it. Field hockey, men's soccer, and women's soccer have played 7 games against Philly schools, and the goalies have only allowed an average of 1 goal per game against crosstown rivals. I could talk about goalkeeping all day, and in fact, I will in just a second. Though it wasn't the winningest week for Temple, the Sage Saffron Spotlight is back.
But today, we can call it the Sage Saffron Surprise because we have a special guest joining us real soon. As we mentioned earlier, I have high hopes for Mia Davis. It's her 6th and final year, and her current list of awards, honors, and accolades is already pages long, most recently receiving her 2nd straight AAC Preseason Player of the Year honors. Open a women's basketball record book. She holds 1st in made free throws, 3rd in most made field goals and rebounds, 4th in points. I'm predicting she'll quickly approach and likely surpass records set by the likes of Tanya Atkinson and Candice Dupree, who both made it to the WNBA.
And my spotlight is the previously mentioned Megan Ragusa. Ragusa stood tall and shut out the Providence Friars in Rhode Island last week, bringing the Owls to 3-1 in conference play. That shutout was good enough for 5th on the season, ranking her 8th in the entire country in shutouts. I talked to Megan this week, and she told me no goals against Liberty this Friday. The opposition can't score, they can't win.
Now we aren't quite done with our Spotlight segment. Let's welcome Inside the Nest reporter Emily Cochran to the show.
Sage and Josh, thank you so much for having me on the show today. Although both of your picks are great, I think I'm going to have to stick with what I typically talk on Tuesdays, football. I'm putting a spotlight on Rory Bell. The freshman kicker launched a career-high 47-yard field goal against Wagner in Week 4, and just this past weekend he broke his own record and kicked a 55-yard bomb to put up the only 3 points of the game against Cincinnati. This kick was the second longest in school history and the longest in 46 years, all worthy of my spotlight. Sage and Josh, back to you guys.
Thanks, Emily. We're up against our final break of the show, but stay tuned.
We've got a lot of volleyball to get to as women's volleyball looks to get its first conference victory win and snap a 7-match losing skid on the other side. The volleyball season has gone from bad to worse. The team has dropped 7 straight matches and now face a remaining schedule made up entirely of conference opponents. To find out if the Owls can bump up their play, OwlSports' own Cameron Schofield has the scoop.
It's safe to say that Temple Volleyball didn't play through the first half of its season as planned.
So we have 16 matches left. We're going to do the best we can and compete and try to win as many matches we can possibly do.
The Owls have now fallen to 4-13, their worst record through 17 matches since Temple U joined the AAC in 2013. Though head coach Bakir Ganesharatnam's tough-as-nails mentality has not wavered as his team prepares for its remaining conference matchups.
No, it doesn't matter if we're 0-5 or 12-2. The goal is the same. Every opportunity we have to compete for a win, we have to compete for a win.
Coach Bake is well known for establishing a winning tradition. He rallied last year's squad all the way to the AAC championship match, but adapting to new faces is one of the primary reasons the Owls have struggled this go-around.
We started off the beginning of the season with a new setter, and I think we're still adjusting, but we've gotten a lot better just with connections.
Grimshaw is one of the leading offensive producers this season, averaging 3.5 kills per set and posting 18 aces so far.
Personally, I just want to stay consistent.
This past weekend is yet another example of Temple volleyball struggles. After dropping both games to both ECU and Cincy, not only are they winless in conference, but they are also winless dating back to mid-September.
We're working on being more consistent. The other thing is we have to bring the unforced error margin down.
The 6-game winless streak is hoping to be snapped at their next match at home against USF on Friday. For OwlSports Update, I'm Cameron Schofield.
Well, no football game this weekend, and quite frankly, I don't know what to do with myself.
Maybe get in a little extra studying for midterms. For Josh Safran, I'm Sage Hurley. We'll see you next time.
Midterm? Never heard of it.